Um, Started out talking about our founders and the different ways we've approached our government and where we are. Um, all governments exist for the benefit of their citizens. Even if they're dictators, they do that. Huey Long, who was basically the dictator of Louisiana in the 1930s and would be called a demagogue, and he was, but he knew who put him in office, and he maintained a lot of policies that were for the benefit of the mass of the people. And the people he replaced never really quite grasped that. They were used to being in charge, and they didn't really think much of the governed, the citizenry. Does that sound familiar? But the founders of this country put a great deal of thought into what is called our Constitution, which is a compact, a contract between the citizens and the government. And they were a very well-read group of people. They had done a lot of study. And when I was in college, I took a class called American Political Thought, and in that we read the writings of Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, David Hume, Rousseau, Voltaire, John Calvin, Aristotle, Plato, John Calvin, who was theological, but he had a republican form of government in Geneva, Switzerland. Martin Luther had ideas on governed, Hegel, Kant. The founders read all of these people. I defy you to find a politician today who's taken the time or the effort to read any of that. Machiavelli, who gets a lot of bad press, and some of it's deserved, but he was also very realistic in what one had to do in order to govern and govern effectively. But what citizens want is a safe form of government. And that would be a government that allows them to do what they want to do, to live their lives, to raise their families, to be secure. And if that doesn't happen, then those in power, it may take a while, but they ain't going to be in power for long. The Chinese call it the mandate of heaven. And throughout their recorded history, beginning with the first emperor and whatnot, and they've been through periods of anarchy, but the periods when the emperor has the mandate, then the citizenry is in good shape, everybody's doing what they want to do, they live secure lives, and they'll pretty much put up with a lot as long as that takes place. But when anarchy starts coming into play and the corruption and the bribery becomes endemic, then the emperor loses the mandate, and you go into a period of warlordism and so forth and so on. And we've had that happen here with the fall of the Western Roman Empire. Then we entered feudalism, which the later aristocrats were the meanest people on the block, and they could maintain a semblance of well-being and protected the people from the raids of Vikings and so forth and so on, and the Muslims and so forth and so on. So, and then eventually they became kind of locked into their own privilege, and eventually the feudalism fell. So you cannot lose sight of that. I'm reminded the Shah of Iran was all powerful until he wasn't. And he tried to pass laws and so forth. It did pass laws and so forth that went against the grain of the Iranian, the Persian people. and he lost that. Now the mullahs have been in charge of Iran since, but they're losing that also and have been for some time. So they double and triple down on what they want. Eventually, that'll lead them to where the Shah ended up. But the people in this country, the founders, believed in a contract, and they followed the example and the writings, and they looked at what was working in their colonies and not working, and they set up a government, and we've discussed this previously, that was difficult for people, any one group, to control on a regular basis. They made it more difficult to pass laws, and they made competing. We have the judiciary, the executive, and the legislative, and basically the House was supposed to be the stronger of that. Now, over the years, and really, I think Woodrow Wilson and then Roosevelt started, making the presidential power more imperial. And we've kind of given in to that because it's easier to do that. But now you have people in Congress who really don't think anything about the Constitution other than what they can use. That's why you hear a lot of this caterwauling about our democracy. And they really don't believe in that. They believe in what they want, and it's not the constitutional form of government. They want to tell you what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. Whether they'll succeed in that, I don't really know. But they don't want free and open debate, and you see that every day. And they've used this so-called pandemic, and they're using fear to intimidate people. And also you have this thing called cancel culture and wokeism and all that. And that's always been around. And people try, a majority tries to control everybody else. Or sometimes it's not even a majority. Lenin, this is a good example, said a well-organized, focused minority can control the majority every time. And he was kind of correct in that, in that it's usually a small group of people who determine a good way to go for them. And sometimes they believe what they're doing is the right thing, and sometimes they don't. And I had mentioned one, you need to read a man named Eric Hoffer, who wrote a book called The True Believer. It came out in '51. He was known as the longshoreman philosopher. And it's a study of fanaticism. And right now you're seeing a lot of fanaticism going on, in that people cannot accept another point of view. And Hoffer made the point of far right, pointing the wrong way, far left or far right, eventually you end up in the same place with people that want to tell you what to do. So you need to, government exists for the benefit of the government. And when you lose that, when they lose sight of that, then the governed don't let that last. Now there's another story about an emperor, all powerful, and his advisors wanted him to pass a law. I won't get into the law, but it kind of went directly against everything the governed believed in. And he was reluctant in doing that. And his advisors like, but you're the emperor, you're all powerful, you can do what you want. And his reply was, how long do you think I'll remain all powerful if we pass this law? And the answer is not for very long. So right now, we have people who don't really like the governed very much. And they're not, right now you have the state of Texas is being sued by the federal government for trying to enforce immigration law, federal law, that's on the books. And they don't really realize how ridiculous that seems. So you need, again, the few that see this, You need to think about this and pass it on. Please read some of them. It's not that hard. Reading the people I have named before is not that difficult. It's only others who tell you it's difficult that we and that's people in education. They teach it so that it's hard. It's not hard. And the best way to live is informed and understanding. And you've got to take part in your government, in your educational system. If you don't, then the people in charge end up telling you what to do, and eventually all hell breaks loose. But anyway, have a very good day, and talk to you later.